The fluorescent light in my garage flickered like a dying heartbeat as I wiped grease from my hands with an old rag. My 2015 Honda Civic sat before me, hood open like a patient on an operating table. At 42, I'd learned that WD-40 and sarcasm could fix almost everything, except a marriage that felt more like a business arrangement these days. My phone buzzed against the workbench. A text from Sarah. "Honey, I'll be late at work. I have so many tasks. Don't wait up." I stared at the screen, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach. Sarah had been working late every night for the past 3 weeks. Her advertising agency, Morrison & Associates, was supposedly swamped with a major campaign for some luxury car brand. As an auto mechanic at Jimmy's garage, I understood deadlines, but this felt different. "You know what, Sarah?" I said to the empty garage. "Maybe it's time for a surprise." The idea hit me like a wrench to the skull. When was the last time I'd done something romantic? When had I last shown up at her office with flowers and chocolates? Hell, when had I last seen her smile at me the way she used to? I checked my watch. 8:47 p.m. The agency would be mostly empty, but Sarah would still be there, hunched over her computer, probably surviving on coffee and determination. Perfect timing for a surprise that might remind us both why we fell in love 15 years ago. 20 minutes later, I stood outside Morrison & Associates, a gleaming glass tower that made me feel like a caveman visiting the future. The building screamed money and success, everything I wasn't. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, I was just a husband bringing his wife her favorite things, white roses and dark chocolate truffles from that expensive place downtown. The security guard, a heavy-set man reading a paperback thriller, barely glanced up as I signed the visitor log. "Visiting my wife," I told him, holding up the flowers. He waved me through with a knowing smile. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt eternal. I rehearsed what I'd say. "Surprise! Thought you could use some fuel for the final stretch." Maybe I'd suggest we grab dinner somewhere nice like we used to do when we were dating. The agency's reception area was dark except for the emergency lighting, but I could see a glow coming from the corner office, Sarah's boss, Derek Morrison's office. Sarah must be meeting with him about the campaign. I'd met Derek a few times at company parties. Mid-50s, silver-haired, the kind of guy who wore suits that cost more than my monthly salary. He had that smooth confidence that came from never having to worry about money. I walked quietly across the marble floor, my work boots squeaking slightly. The flowers felt heavy in my hands, and the chocolate box rustled with each step. As I got closer to Derek's office, I could hear voices, Sarah's laugh, light and musical. It was a sound I hadn't heard in months. That's when I saw them. Through the glass wall of Derek's office, I watched my wife of 15 years pressed against her boss's desk, his hands tangled in her auburn hair, their lips locked in the kind of passionate kiss that belonged in movies. Her skirt was hiked up, his tie was loose, and they moved against each other with the desperate hunger of new lovers. The flowers slipped from my numb fingers first, white roses scattering across the marble like fallen snow. The chocolate box followed with a hollow thud that echoed through the empty office space. They broke apart instantly. Sarah's face went white as printer paper. Derek straightened his tie with the casual arrogance of a man who'd been caught before and survived it. But it was Sarah's expression that gutted me. Not guilt, not shame, but annoyance. Like I was a pest who'd interrupted something important. "Mike," she said, smoothing down her skirt. "What are you doing here?" I stood there like an idiot, staring at the woman I'd loved since I was 27. "I brought you flowers," I said stupidly, gesturing to the scattered roses. "And chocolate." Derek stepped forward, buttoning his shirt cuff. "I think there's been a misunderstanding here." "A misunderstanding?" I laughed, but it came out harsh and bitter. "Yeah, I misunderstood. I thought my wife was working late, not working over her boss." Sarah's cheeks flushed red. "Mike, please. You're embarrassing yourself." I'm embarrassing myself? The words came out louder than I intended. I'm not the one who was just... Nothing happened, Sarah interrupted, her voice sharp. We were just discussing the campaign, and Derek was showing me some layouts on his computer. You walked in at an awkward moment. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. But she was serious. Dead serious. She actually expected me to believe that what I'd just witnessed was a business meeting gone slightly awry. Sarah, I said slowly, I saw you kissing him. I saw his hands. You saw what you wanted to see, Derek interrupted smoothly. Your wife is a dedicated employee who's been working tirelessly on our biggest account. If you're having trust issues in your marriage, maybe you should look at yourself instead of making wild accusations. The condescension in his voice made my hands clench into fists. This was a man who'd never changed his own oil, never worried about making rent, never had to choose between fixing the car and buying groceries. And now he was lecturing me about my marriage while my wife's lipstick was still smeared on his mouth. Trust issues, I repeated. Right. Sarah walked around the desk, careful not to step on the scattered roses. Mike, honey, I think you should go home. We can talk about this later when you've calmed down. When I'd calmed down, like I was the one being unreasonable, like I was the one who'd destroyed 15 years of marriage for a roll in the hay with the boss. I looked at the roses on the floor, their white petals already browning at the edges. I looked at the chocolate box, probably crushed under Derek's Italian leather shoes. Then I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. You know what, Sarah? You're right. This is a misunderstanding. I misunderstood who I married. I pulled out my phone and took 3 quick photos. Sarah's disheveled hair, Derek's untucked shirt, the general chaos of the office that screamed guilty conscience. They both started protesting, but I was already walking away. Mike, wait, Sarah called after me. Don't be ridiculous. I didn't turn around. I walked past the scattered flowers, past the crushed chocolates, past 15 years of marriage that had just died in a glass office overlooking the city. The security guard looked up as I passed his desk. Leaving already? That was quick. Yeah, I said, signing out. Real quick. As I walked to my car, I noticed a black BMW in the parking garage. Derek's car, no doubt. The license plate read, MORSN1, Morrison number 1. The arrogance was breathtaking. I sat in my Honda for a long time, staring at those photos on my phone. In the harsh LED light of the parking garage, they looked even worse. Sarah's face was flushed, her hair messed up in a way that had nothing to do with working late. Derek's smug expression made me want to punch something. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. We need to talk. Come home. I started the engine and drove home through the empty streets, past the closed shops and flickering streetlights of our Rust Belt town. Our house, a modest 2-story we'd bought when we were young and optimistic, looked smaller somehow, like it had shrunk in the hour I'd been gone. Sarah's car wasn't in the driveway yet. She was probably still at the office, explaining things to Derek. Or maybe they were finishing what I'd interrupted. I walked into our living room and looked around at 15 years of shared life. Wedding photos on the mantel. Sarah's books stacked on the coffee table. My tools scattered near the back door. It all felt like a museum exhibit now. The American Marriage, circa 2008-2023. My phone buzzed again. Another text, but this one wasn't from Sarah. Unknown number. You're not the only one who knows. Be careful what you do next. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Someone else knew about Sarah and Derek. Someone who had my number. Someone who was watching. The front door opened and Sarah walked in, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She'd fixed her hair and reapplied her lipstick, but I could still see the guilt in her eyes. Mike, she said carefully, we need to talk. Sarah set her purse on the kitchen counter with deliberate precision, like she was defusing a bomb. She'd changed clothes, Gone was the wrinkled blouse I'd seen in Derek's office, replaced by a fresh sweater that screamed, "Innocent wife coming home from work." "I made coffee," I said, gesturing to the pot I'd started when I got home. "Figured we'd need it." She poured herself a cup, added cream and sugar the way she always did, and sat across from me at our kitchen table. For a moment, it felt almost normal, almost like the thousands of other nights we'd sat here talking about our days, making plans for the weekend. "Mike, about what you saw tonight." "What I saw," I interrupted, "was my wife making out with her boss like a teenager at prom." Sarah's jaw tightened. "That's not what happened." "Then explain it to me. Use small words so my blue-collar brain can understand." She flinched at the sarcasm, but pressed on. "Derek and I were working late on the Lexus campaign. We were both exhausted, running on fumes. He was showing me some layouts on his computer, and I leaned over to get a better look. We bumped into each other, and for just a second, you accidentally fell mouth first onto his lips?" "It wasn't like that." Her voice was getting sharper, more defensive. "It was a moment of confusion. We were both tired, emotionally drained from the project. Sometimes when people work closely together, lines get blurred." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos. "These lines look pretty clear to me." Sarah glanced at the screen and looked away quickly. "Those pictures make it look worse than it was. Sarah, in one of these photos, his hand is literally on your ass. That's not—" She stopped, took a breath, regrouped. "Mike, I love you. I've loved you for 15 years. One moment of weakness doesn't erase everything we've built together." One moment of weakness. That's what she was calling it. Like she'd eaten an extra cookie or forgotten to pay a bill on time. "How long?" I asked. "How long what?" "How long have you been having an affair with Derek?" Her face went pale again. "I'm not having an affair. What you saw tonight was the first and only time anything like that has ever happened." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly it hurt. But something in her eyes, some flicker of guilt or fear, told me she was lying. "The late nights," I said. "The new clothes, the way you've been distant lately. This isn't new, Sarah. I've been working hard because I want to succeed. Is that a crime? I've been distant because you've been distant. When was the last time you asked me about my day? When was the last time you showed any interest in my career?" And there it was. Somehow, this was my fault. I was the bad husband who didn't appreciate his ambitious wife. I was the one who'd driven her into Derek's arms with my neglect and blue-collar limitations. "So this is on me," I said. "I didn't pay enough attention to you, so you had no choice but to tongue-wrestle your boss." "Don't be crude." "Crude? You want to see crude?" I stood up, pacing to the window. "Crude is finding out your wife is cheating by walking in on her. Crude is having her lie to your face about it afterward." "I'm not lying." Sarah slammed her coffee cup down, sloshing liquid across the table. "Why can't you just trust me?" "Because trust is earned, and you just spent it all in Derek's office." We stared at each other across the kitchen, 15 years of marriage hanging in the balance. I could see her calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew, how much I suspected. "Mike," she said finally, her voice softer now. "I made a mistake tonight. I admit that, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change how I feel about you, about us." "What does Derek think about that?" "Derek understands it was a mistake, too. He's as committed to keeping this professional as I am." I almost laughed. Derek Morrison, the man who'd built his career on taking what he wanted, was suddenly concerned about professional boundaries. Right. "Did you sleep with him?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's face went through a series of expressions: shock, hurt, anger, and something that might have been relief. "No," she said firmly. "I have never slept with Derek Morrison." It was the first thing she'd said all night that sounded completely true. Whatever was happening between them, it hadn't gone that far yet. Yet. "But you want to," I said. She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know." At least she was being honest. Finally. "I need some air," I said, grabbing my jacket from the chair. "Where are you going?" "Out. I need to think." "Mike, please don't do anything stupid." I stopped at the door. Stupid like what? Stupid like trusting my wife? Stupid like bringing her flowers at work? Or stupid like believing her when she says it was all a misunderstanding? I left before she could answer. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and the distant smell of the old steel mill that had closed down 5 years ago. I drove aimlessly through town, past the high school where Sarah and I had met, past the church where we'd gotten married, past all the landmarks of a life that suddenly felt like ancient history. I ended up at Murphy's, a dive bar on the wrong side of town where nobody asked questions and the beer was cheap. The place was nearly empty, just me, the bartender, and an old-timer nursing a whiskey at the far end of the bar. "Rough night?" the bartender asked as he slid a beer across the scarred wooden bar. "You could say that." I drank in silence, thinking about Sarah's face when I'd walked into that office. Not the guilt or the shock, but the split second before she realized I was there. She'd looked happy, alive in a way I hadn't seen in years. That hurt worse than the kissing. My phone buzzed. "Sarah, come home. We can work this out." Then another message from the unknown number. "Check Derek's social media, 3rd photo from the top." I opened Instagram and searched for Derek Morrison. His account was public, of course. The man's ego wouldn't allow for privacy settings. The 3rd photo from the top was from 2 weeks ago. Derek at some fancy restaurant, caption reading, "Celebrating new partnerships." But it wasn't Derek I was looking at. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable, was Sarah. She was sitting at a corner table, laughing at something someone off camera was saying. The timestamp showed 9:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. The same Tuesday she'd told me she was working late and had grabbed a sandwich at her desk. I screenshotted the photo and sent it to the unknown number with a message. "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "A friend. Meet me tomorrow at Central Park, noon. Bench by the fountain. Come alone." I finished my beer and drove home through streets that felt foreign now, like I was visiting someone else's life. Sarah was waiting in the living room, still in her sweater, her makeup perfect despite the hour. "We need to set some ground rules," she said as I walked in. "Ground rules? If we're going to work through this, we need boundaries. No more surprise visits at my office. No more accusations. And definitely no more taking pictures without permission." I stared at her. "You want me to follow rules? You're the one who—" "I made a mistake, Mike. I admitted that. But if you want to save this marriage, you need to start acting like a partner instead of a detective." The audacity was breathtaking. She was cheating, or at least heading in that direction, and somehow I was the one who needed to change my behavior. "What about Derek?" I asked. "What about him? Is he going to follow these ground rules too? Or is he exempt because he signs your paychecks?" Sarah's face hardened. "Derek is my boss. I have to maintain a professional relationship with him." "Professional, right." I pulled out my phone and showed her the restaurant photo. "How professional was this dinner 2 weeks ago?" Her face went white. Where did you get this?" "Does it matter? The point is, you lied. Again." "It was a business dinner. The whole team was there." "I don't see the whole team in this picture. I see you looking cozy in a romantic restaurant while you told me you were eating a sandwich at your desk." Sarah stood up abruptly. "I can't do this anymore tonight. I'm going to bed. Sarah, we'll talk tomorrow, when you're ready to have a rational conversation instead of playing prosecutor." She left me alone in the living room with my phone and my doubts. I looked at the restaurant photo again, zooming in on Sarah's face. She looked radiant, happy, the way she used to look when she was with me. I thought about the mysterious text, the meeting tomorrow at the park. Someone else knew about Sarah and Derek, someone who had access to information I didn't, someone who might have answers, or someone who might make everything worse. I fell asleep on the couch, still fully dressed, dreaming of white roses scattered on marble floors. The next morning, Sarah was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to work early. We'll talk tonight. Please don't do anything. We'll both regret. S. The "we'll both regret" part stuck with me as I got ready for work. What exactly did she think I was planning? At Jimmy's garage, I went through the motions of changing oil and rotating tires, but my mind was elsewhere. My boss, Jimmy Kowalski, a 60-year-old Polish immigrant with hands like baseball mitts, noticed my distraction around 10 a.m. "You look like hell, Mikey," he said, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. "Everything okay at home?" Jimmy had been married to the same woman for 37 years. They still held hands when they walked down the street. What would he think if I told him my wife was cheating? What advice could he possibly give? "Just tired," I said. "Didn't sleep well." "Take the afternoon off," Jimmy said. "Whatever's eating at you, fix it before it gets worse." At 11:30, I was sitting in my Honda outside Central Park, watching people walk their dogs and push strollers along the winding paths. The park was one of the few nice things about our Rust Belt town. 20 acres of green space donated by some long-dead industrialist who'd probably made his fortune polluting the river. I found the bench by the fountain easily enough. It was occupied by a woman in her early 40s, auburn hair like Sarah's, but shorter, wearing a business suit that screamed money. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Mike," she said as I approached. "I'm Angela Hartman." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Angela Hartman, Sarah's best friend from college, maid of honor at our wedding. The woman who'd disappeared from our lives 3 years ago after some kind of falling out with Sarah that my wife had never fully explained. "Angela," I said, sitting down beside her. "I should have known." "Should have known what?" "That this was about more than just Sarah and Derek." Angela smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "You always were smarter than Sarah gave you credit for. What do you want?" "To help you understand what's really happening, and maybe to help you do something about it." She opened her purse and pulled out a tablet. "Derek Morrison isn't just Sarah's boss. He's her ticket out of the life she's been stuck in for 15 years. Stuck in? Come on, Mike. You know Sarah's always wanted more. The big house, the expensive cars, the social status. You're a good man, but you're not a rich man. Derek can give her everything she's ever dreamed of." Angela swiped through photos on her tablet. Sarah and Derek at various restaurants, always sitting close, always looking intimate. Sarah getting into Derek's BMW. Sarah wearing jewelry I'd never seen before. Expensive jewelry. "How long have you been following them?" I asked. 6 months. Ever since Sarah started working directly with Derek on the luxury accounts. "Why?" Angela's smile turned bitter. "Because Sarah destroyed my life 3 years ago, and I've been waiting for the chance to return the favor." The pieces started falling into place. 3 years ago, Angela had been working at Morrison & Associates, too. She'd been Sarah's friend, her mentor, the one who'd gotten Sarah the job in the first place. Then suddenly she was gone, and Sarah refused to talk about it. "What happened 3 years ago?" I asked. "I made the mistake of trusting your wife with sensitive information. Client data, financial projections, strategic plans. Sarah used that information to undermine me, to make it look like I was incompetent. She got me fired and took over my accounts. Sarah wouldn't what? Betray a friend for career advancement? She's betraying her husband for the same reason." Angela swiped to a new photo. Sarah and Derek in what looked like a hotel lobby, Derek's hand on the small of her back, both of them heading toward the elevators. "When was this taken?" I asked. "Last Thursday. The Marriott downtown. They were there for 3 hours. Last Thursday. Sarah had told me she was having dinner with clients. She'd come home at 11 p.m., claiming the dinner had run long, and she'd stopped by the office afterward to catch up on emails. "You've been watching them for 6 months," I said. "Why contact me now?" "Because Derek's wife is filing for divorce next week. She hired a private investigator who's been documenting Derek's affairs, plural, by the way. Sarah isn't his first office romance. Once the divorce proceedings start, everything comes out. Sarah's going to be named in the papers, probably sued for alienation of affection." My stomach dropped. Sued? Derek's wife comes from old money, real old money, the kind of family that doesn't like public embarrassment. Sarah's about to become a very expensive problem for Derek Morrison. And you think he'll throw her under the bus? I don't think it, Mike. I know it. I've seen Derek operate for 5 years. When things get messy, he cuts his losses and moves on. Sarah thinks she's found her prince charming, but she's actually just his latest disposable toy. Angela closed the tablet and looked at me directly. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What can I do?" She made her choice. Did she? Or was she manipulated into making it? I thought about Sarah's face in Derek's office, the happiness I'd seen there. She looked pretty willing to me. Derek Morrison is a predator, Mike. He targets women who are vulnerable, dissatisfied with their lives. He makes them feel special, important, desired. Then he uses them until he gets bored or until they become inconvenient. And you want me to what? Save her from herself? Angela's smile turned sharp. I want you to save yourself, and maybe teach both of them a lesson they won't forget. She handed me a flash drive. Everything's on here. Photos, documents, financial records showing Derek's pattern of behavior with female employees, plus some interesting information about Morrison and Associates' business practices that the IRS might find fascinating. I don't want to go to prison for tax fraud. You won't, but Derek might, once the right people see these documents. And Sarah might find herself unemployed and unemployable in this industry. I stared at the flash drive, feeling its weight in my palm. Why are you doing this? Really? Because Sarah took everything from me. My job, my reputation, my future in this business. She smiled to my face while she stabbed me in the back, then acted like I was the problem when I called her on it. Angela stood up, smoothing down her skirt. Sarah thinks she's so smart, playing you and Derek against each other. She thinks she can have her cake and eat it too. Time to show her that actions have consequences. What if I just walk away, divorce her and move on with my life? Then she wins. She gets Derek, his money, his lifestyle, and half of everything you've worked for. Is that really what you want? I thought about our house, the one we'd bought when we were young and optimistic. I thought about the garage where I'd spent countless hours fixing cars and dreaming of a better life. I thought about 15 years of marriage that Sarah was willing to throw away for a man who collected women like trophies. What exactly are you proposing? I asked. Angela's smile was pure predator now. I'm proposing we give Sarah and Derek exactly what they deserve. I'm proposing we destroy them the same way they've destroyed other people. How? Leave that to me. I just need you to play along, follow my lead. Can you do that? I looked at the flash drive again, then slipped it into my pocket. What's the first step? Go home, act normal, let Sarah think she's got you fooled. Meanwhile, I'll start putting the pieces in place. What pieces? Derek's wife isn't the only person who wants to see him burn. He's made a lot of enemies over the years. It's time to introduce them to each other. Angela walked away without another word, leaving me alone on the bench by the fountain. I sat there for a long time, watching families play in the park, couples walking hand in hand, children laughing on the playground. Normal people living normal lives, unburdened by cheating spouses and revenge plots. My phone buzzed. Sarah, how was work? I'm making your favorite dinner tonight. Love you. Love you. 2 words that used to make my day. Now they felt like lies wrapped in false sincerity. I typed back, "Work was fine. See you at home." But as I drove back through town, past the closed factories and boarded-up shops, I realized nothing was fine anymore. Sarah had started this war when she decided Derek Morrison was worth more than 15 years of marriage. Now Angela was offering me the weapons to fight back. The question was, did I have the courage to use them? I arrived home to find Sarah in the kitchen, wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. She'd set the table with our good china, lit candles, opened a bottle of wine. The whole scene screamed, guilty wife trying to make amends. "You look beautiful," I said, and meant it. Even knowing what I knew, even with Angela's photos burned into my memory, Sarah was still the most beautiful woman I'd ever known. "Thank you." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I thought we could have a nice dinner, talk about things like civilized adults." Civilized adults, right. She'd made beef stroganoff, my favorite, from scratch. The smell filled the kitchen, bringing back memories of better times, Sunday dinners, anniversaries, quiet evenings when we were still happy. "Mike," she said as we sat down to eat, "I want you to know how sorry I am about last night, about everything." Everything? The way I've been distant lately, the way I've been prioritizing work over our marriage, the incident with Derek. The incident. Like it was a fender bender instead of the destruction of our marriage. "What exactly are you sorry for, Sarah?" She took a sip of wine, buying time. "I'm sorry for letting my professional relationship with Derek become inappropriate. I'm sorry for putting myself in a position where lines got blurred. And I'm sorry for not being honest with you about how much time I've been spending with him." Carefully crafted words that admitted nothing while sounding like everything. Sarah had always been good with language. It's what made her successful in advertising. "Are you sorry for lying to me?" "I never lied to you. The restaurant dinner 2 weeks ago, you told me you ate a sandwich at your desk." Her face flushed. "I didn't think it was important." "A business dinner wasn't important enough to mention to your husband?" "It wasn't just Derek and me. Other people were there." "Who? What? Who else was there? Names, Sarah." She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't remember exactly. It was a big group." Another lie. Angela's photo had shown Sarah alone with Derek, intimate and cozy in a corner booth. But I played along, letting Sarah dig her hole deeper. "Okay," I said. "Let's say I believe you about the dinner. What about the hotel?" The color drained from her face. "What hotel?" "The Marriott downtown, last Thursday. You and Derek, together for 3 hours." Sarah set down her fork with shaking hands. Who told you that?" "Does it matter? The point is, you lied again? You said you were having dinner with clients, but you were actually in a hotel with your boss?" "It wasn't what you think." "Then what was it?" "We were meeting with a potential client. A very private, very wealthy client who values discretion. The meeting was in his hotel suite." The lies were getting more elaborate, more desperate, but Sarah was sticking to her story with the determination of a politician caught in scandal. "What was the client's name?" I asked. "I can't tell you that. Client confidentiality." "Convenient." "Mike, please. I'm trying to save our marriage here. Can't you meet me halfway?" I looked across the table at this woman I'd loved for 15 years, watching her lie to my face with practiced ease. The Sarah I'd married would never have been able to lie this smoothly, this convincingly. When had she learned this skill? How many other lies had I believed over the years? "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want you to trust me. I want you to believe that what happened with Derek was a mistake, nothing more. I want us to go to counseling, work through this together." "And Derek? What happens with him?" "Nothing happens with him. We maintain a professional relationship, nothing more." "Can you do that? Can you just turn off whatever you're feeling for him?" Sarah was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, Her voice was barely above a whisper. There's nothing to turn off. The lie hung in the air between us like smoke. We both knew it was a lie. The question was whether I was going to call her on it. Okay, I said finally. Let's try counseling. Relief flooded her face. Really? You mean it? I mean it. But I have some conditions. Anything. No more late nights at the office. No more private meetings with Derek. No more business dinners that you forget to mention. Mike, I'm not finished. I want access to your phone, your email, your social media. Complete transparency. Her face hardened. That's not trust, Mike. That's surveillance. Trust is earned, Sarah. You broke it, now you have to rebuild it. I can't give you my work email. There's confidential client information. Then maybe counseling won't work after all. We stared at each other across the candlelit table, the romantic dinner forgotten. This was the moment of truth. Would Sarah choose our marriage or her secret life with Derek? Fine, she said finally. But I need time to clear it with Derek, make sure there are no legal issues with client confidentiality. How much time? A week, maybe 2. A week or 2 to delete incriminating emails, to coordinate stories with Derek, to cover her tracks. But I nodded anyway, playing the role of the trusting husband. Okay, 2 weeks. We finished dinner in relative silence, making small talk about work and weather and anything but the elephant in the room. Sarah tried to recreate the intimacy we'd once shared, touching my hand across the table, smiling at my jokes, but it all felt forced, like she was acting out a role in a play she didn't believe in. After dinner, we watched a movie on the couch, Sarah curled up against me like she used to do. But I could feel the tension in her body, the way she kept checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I'm going to take a shower, she said around 10 p.m. While the water ran upstairs, I checked my own phone. A message from Angela. Phase 1 complete. Check your email. I opened my laptop and found a message from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, Morrison and Associates, Internal Investigation. The email contained a detailed report about Derek Morrison's history with female employees. 5 women over the past 7 years, all following the same pattern. Derek would target women who were ambitious but vulnerable, usually those having problems at home. He'd mentor them, give them special projects, make them feel valued and important. Then came the late-night work sessions, the business dinners, the gradual blurring of professional boundaries. 3 of the women had left the company after brief affairs. 1 had been transferred to another department. 1 had filed a sexual harassment complaint that was quietly settled out of court. Sarah was just the latest in a long line of conquests. The report also included financial irregularities at Morrison and Associates, inflated billing, kickbacks from vendors, tax avoidance schemes that bordered on fraud. Derek had been running his agency like a personal piggy bank, and Sarah, as his right-hand woman on the luxury accounts, would have known about most of it. My phone buzzed. Another message from Angela. Meeting tomorrow, same place, same time. Bring the report. Upstairs, the shower turned off. I quickly closed the laptop and tried to look casual as Sarah came downstairs in her robe, her hair wrapped in a towel. I'm exhausted, she said, kissing my cheek. I'm going to bed early. I'll be up in a few minutes, I said. Just want to finish this article. She nodded and headed upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard her phone buzz. Then again. Then a third time. I crept upstairs and listened outside our bedroom door. Sarah was talking in hushed tones, her voice urgent and worried. Told him about the hotel. I don't know how he found out. Yes, I'm handling it. No, he doesn't suspect anything else. A pause, then. Derek, I can't keep lying to him. This is getting too complicated, I know, but... Yes, I understand. 2 more weeks. Then we can... I love you too. I stood outside our bedroom door, listening to my wife tell another man she loved him, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Whatever sympathy I'd had for Sarah, whatever hope I'd held for our marriage, died in that moment. She'd made her choice. Now, I'd make mine. I went back downstairs and sent a message to Angela. "I'm in. Whatever you're planning, count me in." The response came immediately. "Good. Tomorrow we start destroying them both." I sat in my living room, surrounded by 15 years of marriage, and began planning my wife's downfall. The funny thing was, I didn't feel guilty about it. I felt relieved. Sarah wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that some games have consequences she never saw coming. The next day at Central Park, Angela laid out her plan with the precision of a military operation. She'd been busy in the 24 hours since our first meeting, pulling strings and calling in favors from her network of contacts in the advertising world. Derek's wife, Patricia, comes from the Caldwell family, Angela explained, showing me photos on her tablet. Old Boston money, the kind of people who trace their lineage back to the Mayflower. They own 3 newspapers, 2 radio stations, and have connections to every major advertiser on the East Coast. So Patricia isn't just divorcing Derek. She's going to destroy him professionally. She's already reached out to Morrison and Associates' biggest clients, suggesting they might want to reconsider their relationships with the agency. Angela swiped to a new screen showing financial documents. Derek's been using company funds for his personal expenses. Hotel rooms, jewelry, expensive dinners, all charged to client accounts as business development. Sarah's been helping him cover it up by creating fake invoices and billing reports. Sarah's involved in the financial stuff? Up to her neck. She's been Derek's accomplice in defrauding clients for over a year now. When Patricia's lawyers start digging, they're going to find enough evidence to send both Derek and Sarah to prison. The word prison hit me like a physical blow. Whatever I thought about Sarah's betrayal, I didn't want to see her behind bars. "There has to be another way," I said. Angela's smile was sharp as a blade. "There is. That's where you come in." She handed me a thick manila envelope. Inside, you'll find copies of all the financial documents, plus statements from 3 of Derek's previous victims, women who are ready to testify about his pattern of sexual harassment and financial impropriety. "What do you want me to do with this?" Tomorrow night, Morrison and Associates is hosting their annual charity gala at the Riverside Country Club. 500 people, including all their major clients, the mayor, half the city council, and every important business leader in town. I had a sinking feeling about where this was going. "Sarah's been planning this event for months," Angela continued. "It's supposed to be her big moment, her chance to shine in front of Derek's wealthy friends. Instead, it's going to be her public humiliation." "What exactly are you planning?" "Derek is scheduled to give a speech at 8 p.m. thanking everyone for their support of the Children's Hospital charity, but he's not going to get the chance." Angela pulled out a small device that looked like a USB drive. "This contains a presentation I've put together. Photos of Derek with his various conquests, including Sarah, financial documents showing the fraud, testimony from his victims, everything." "You want me to hack into their presentation system?" "I want you to replace Derek's speech with the truth. Let everyone see what kind of man Derek Morrison really is, and what kind of woman Sarah has become." The plan was audacious, cruel, and absolutely devastating. It would destroy both Derek and Sarah in front of the entire business community. Their careers would be over, their reputations ruined, their lives left in shambles. "I can't do that to Sarah," I said. "Sarah's already done it to herself. I'm just making sure she faces the consequences." Angela leaned closer, her voice intense. "Mike, your wife is planning to leave you. She's been moving money out of your joint accounts into a private account Derek set up for her. She's been meeting with divorce lawyers. She's going to blindside you with papers next month, right after Derek's divorce is finalized." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. "How do you know that?" "Because I've been watching her, following her, documenting everything." Angela showed me photos of Sarah entering a law office, meeting with a man in an expensive suit. That's Richard Steinberg, the most ruthless divorce attorney in the state. Sarah hired him 2 weeks ago. I stared at the photos, feeling the last of my illusions crumble. While I'd been trying to save our marriage, Sarah had been planning its destruction. She's going to take everything, Angela continued. The house, half your retirement, alimony for life, and she's going to do it while she's living with Derek in his mansion on Elm Street. How do you know all this? Because I used to be where Sarah is now. Derek's chosen woman, his inside accomplice, his ticket to bigger and better things, until he got bored and threw me away like garbage. The bitterness in Angela's voice was palpable. This wasn't just about Sarah, this was about settling an old score with Derek Morrison. What happens after the gala? I asked. After you destroy them both? Derek loses everything, his business, his reputation, his freedom when the FBI starts investigating the financial fraud. Sarah loses her job, her boyfriend, and any chance of a career in advertising. And me? You get to start over. Clean slate, no cheating wife, no messy divorce. Derek and Sarah will be too busy fighting criminal charges to come after your assets. I looked at the USB drive in Angela's hand, knowing it contained enough explosive information to destroy 2 lives. Part of me wanted to take it, to make Sarah and Derek pay for what they'd done to me. But another part of me, the part that still remembered loving Sarah, hesitated. I need time to think about this, I said. There is no time. The gala is tomorrow night. After that, Derek and Sarah will be untouchable. Patricia's divorce will be finalized. Derek will have covered his tracks, and Sarah will have moved all your money out of reach. Angela pressed the USB drive into my hand. This is your only chance, Mike. Your only chance to get justice for what they've done to you. I stared at the small device, feeling its weight like a loaded gun. How do I even get into the country club? I'm not exactly on the guest list. You'll be working there. I've arranged for you to be hired as part of the catering crew for tomorrow night. You'll have access to the audio-visual room during Derek's speech. You've thought of everything. I've had 3 years to plan this, Mike. 3 years of watching Derek Morrison ruin lives while facing no consequences. Tomorrow night, that ends. I pocketed the USB drive and stood up from the bench. If I do this, what happens to us afterward? Us? You and me, partners in crime, co-conspirators. What's our relationship after we destroy my wife and your former boss? Angela's smile was cold as winter. We don't have a relationship, Mike. After tomorrow night, we never see each other again. You go back to your life, I go back to mine, and Derek and Sarah live with the consequences of their choices. I walked back to my car, feeling like I was carrying a bomb in my pocket. The USB drive seemed to pulse with destructive potential, promising revenge and justice in equal measure. That evening, Sarah came home late again, claiming she'd been putting finishing touches on the gala preparations. She was excited, almost giddy, talking about how perfect everything was going to be. This could be the night that makes my career, she said over dinner. Derek's promised to announce my promotion to senior vice president during his speech. Senior vice president. Another lie she'd been keeping from me, another secret shared with Derek instead of her husband. That's wonderful, I said, playing the supportive spouse. You've worked so hard for this. I have, she agreed, not catching the irony. I've sacrificed so much to get where I am. Sacrificed, like our marriage was just collateral damage in her climb up the corporate ladder. That night, I lay awake listening to Sarah sleep beside me, the USB drive hidden in my sock drawer like a loaded weapon. In less than 24 hours, I would have the power to destroy the woman I'd once loved more than life itself. The question was, did I have the courage to use it? Sarah stirred beside me, murmuring Derek's name in her sleep, and I had my answer. Tomorrow night, at the Riverside Country Club, in front of 500 of the city's most important people, Sarah and Derek would learn that actions have consequences, and I would finally get my revenge. The Riverside Country Club gleamed like a jewel against the autumn evening, its windows blazing with warm light as luxury cars deposited their elegantly dressed passengers at the front entrance. I watched from the service entrance, wearing the black pants and white shirt of the catering staff, feeling like a spy infiltrating enemy territory. The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket as I checked in with the catering supervisor, a harried woman named Linda, who barely glanced at my fake credentials. Angela had done her homework. I was officially Michael Thompson, temporary hire for the evening, assigned to audio-visual support. "You'll be working with Jerry in the AV booth," Linda said, pointing toward a balcony overlooking the main ballroom. "Make sure the microphones work and the presentation system doesn't crash. These people pay too much money for technical difficulties." The ballroom was magnificent, decorated with white roses and gold accents, round tables seating 10 people each, a stage at the front with a podium and a large projection screen. I spotted Sarah immediately, stunning in a black evening gown I'd never seen before, moving through the crowd like she owned the place. Derek was beside her, resplendent in a custom tuxedo, playing the role of successful businessman and philanthropist. They looked perfect together, like they belonged in this world of wealth and privilege, surrounded by people who would never have to worry about making rent or fixing their own cars. "You the new guy?" Jerry, the regular AV technician, was a thin man in his 50s with tired eyes and nicotine-stained fingers. "Good. I need a smoke break before the speeches start." He showed me the basic controls, microphone levels, lighting, the presentation computer that would display Derek's speech slides. It was almost too easy. "System's pretty simple," Jerry said. "Just don't touch anything unless something goes wrong. The presentation's already loaded and ready to go." He left me alone in the booth, overlooking 500 of the city's elite. I recognized faces from the newspaper, the mayor, city council members, business leaders, society wives. These were the people who ran our town, who made the decisions that affected everyone else's lives. And in 2 hours, they were all going to see Derek Morrison and Sarah revealed for what they really were. I pulled out the USB drive and stared at it, knowing I was holding the nuclear option. Once I plugged this in, there would be no going back. Sarah's life would be destroyed, her career ended, her reputation ruined. She would never forgive me, never understand that I was just giving her the consequences of her own choices. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Can you see me from up there? I'm so nervous." I looked down at her, radiant and confident, working the room like the professional she was. She caught my eye and waved, blowing me a kiss like she used to do when we were young and happy. For a moment, I wavered. This was still Sarah, the woman I'd loved for 15 years. The woman who'd held my hand through my father's funeral, who'd celebrated with me when I got promoted to shop foreman, who'd dreamed with me about the life we were going to build together. Then I saw Derek approach her, his hand sliding possessively around her waist, and my resolve hardened. Sarah had made her choice. She'd chosen Derek's money over our marriage, his status over our love, his promises over 15 years of shared history. Now she would live with the consequences. The dinner service began at 7 p.m. I watched the elegant choreography of wealth, servers in white gloves presenting course after course of gourmet food, wine flowing like water, conversations about stock portfolios and vacation homes and charity boards. This was the world Sarah wanted to be part of, the life she thought Derek could give her. At 7:45, Derek took the stage for sound check. He looked confident, comfortable, like a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. The presentation slides flashed on the screen behind him, generic corporate graphics about Morrison and Associates' commitment to community service and charitable giving. "Testing, testing," Derek said into the microphone, his voice booming through the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be starting in just a few minutes." Jerry returned from his smoke break, reeking of tobacco and coffee. "Everything running smooth?" "Perfect," I said. "No problems at all." At 7:58, Derek returned to the stage. The crowd quieted, conversations dying as 500 faces turned toward the podium. Sarah stood at a front table beaming with pride, ready to hear her lover announce her promotion to the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," Derek began, "thank you all for joining us tonight for this worthy cause. The Children's Hospital means so much to all of us, and your generous donations will help save lives." Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Derek clicked his remote, expecting to see his first presentation slide. Instead, the screen filled with a photo of him kissing Sarah in his office, her skirt hiked up, his hands tangled in her hair. The crowd gasped. Derek spun around, staring at the screen in shock. Sarah's face went white as paper. "What the hell?" Derek started to say, but I'd already switched to the next slide. This one showed Derek with another woman, a blonde I didn't recognize, in a similar compromising position. Then another woman, a brunette this time, in what looked like a hotel room. "Turn it off!" Derek shouted, but his microphone was still on, broadcasting his panic to the entire ballroom. The next slide was a financial document showing fraudulent billing to a major client. Then another, and another, a cascade of evidence documenting years of financial impropriety and sexual harassment. The crowd was in chaos now, people standing up, pointing at the screen, pulling out their phones to record the spectacle. I could see Sarah pushing through the crowd, trying to reach the stage, her face a mask of horror and humiliation. "This is a mistake!" Derek yelled into the microphone. "Someone's hacked our system. These documents are fabricated." But the next slide showed a bank statement with Derek's name on it, detailing payments to a private account used for personal expenses. Then came the testimony from his victims, women describing his pattern of manipulation and abuse, their statements sworn and notarized. Derek finally had the presence of mind to turn off the microphone, but it was too late. The damage was done. 500 people had seen everything. The affairs, the fraud, the systematic abuse of power that had defined Derek Morrison's career. I watched Sarah reach the stage, her beautiful evening gown torn at the hem from pushing through the crowd. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, the confident professional facade completely shattered. Derek grabbed her arm, pulling her close, and I could read his lips. "Did you know about this? Did you set this up?" Sarah shook her head frantically, but Derek wasn't buying it. Even from the AV booth, I could see the suspicion and anger in his eyes. Their perfect partnership was cracking under pressure, each one wondering if the other had betrayed them. Security guards were moving toward the stage now, trying to restore order, but the crowd was beyond control. People were streaming toward the exits, phones pressed to their ears, already spreading the news to the rest of the city. "Jesus Christ," Jerry muttered beside me. "Someone's having a bad night." I ejected the USB drive and slipped it back into my pocket, erasing the evidence of my involvement. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know about Derek Morrison's crimes and Sarah's complicity. Their careers were over, their reputations destroyed, their lives left in ruins. And I felt empty. I'd expected satisfaction, the sweet taste of revenge served cold. Instead, I felt hollow, watching the woman I'd once loved break down in front of 500 strangers. This wasn't justice. It was cruelty. But it was the cruelty Sarah had earned through her choices, her lies, her betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from Angela. "Beautiful work. They'll never recover from this." I looked down at the ballroom one last time. Derek was arguing with security guards, his face red with rage and humiliation. Sarah stood alone on the stage, abandoned by her lover and exposed to the world, looking small and broken in her torn evening gown. She looked up at the AV booth, and for a moment, our eyes met across the chaos. She knew. Somehow she knew I was responsible for this. The look she gave me was pure hatred, mixed with something that might have been respect. Her mild-mannered mechanic husband had just destroyed her world with surgical precision. I walked out of the Riverside Country Club and drove home through streets that looked exactly the same as they had that morning, even though everything had changed. The house felt different too. Lighter somehow, like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had been lifted from my shoulders. I poured myself a beer and sat in my living room, surrounded by 15 years of marriage that had just ended in spectacular fashion. My phone was already buzzing with calls and texts from people who'd heard about the gala, but I ignored them all. Tomorrow, the whole city would be talking about Derek Morrison's fall from grace and Sarah's role in his crimes. The FBI would probably get involved, investigating the financial fraud. Sarah would be lucky to avoid prison, let alone find another job in advertising. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was alone in my own house without wondering where my wife really was or who she was really with. Sarah's key turned in the front door lock at 11:30 p.m. She walked into the living room still wearing her torn evening gown, her makeup smeared, her hair disheveled. She looked like a woman who'd survived a natural disaster. "Hello, Sarah," I said calmly. "How was the gala?" She stared at me for a long moment, then started to laugh. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the laughter of someone whose world had just collapsed and who was trying not to scream. "You did this," she said finally. "You destroyed everything." "I didn't do anything. I just gave people the truth about who you really are." "The truth?" Sarah's voice was rising now, anger replacing shock. "The truth is that you're a small, petty man who couldn't handle his wife being successful, so you sabotaged me." "I sabotaged you?" "Sarah, you were stealing from clients. You were helping Derek commit fraud. You were planning to divorce me and take everything I've worked for." Her face went pale. "How did you know about the divorce lawyer? About the secret bank account? About all of it?" I took a sip of my beer. "I know, because I'm not as stupid as you thought I was." Sarah sank into a chair, the fight going out of her. "What happens now?" "Now, you face the consequences of your choices. Derek's finished. His wife's divorce will clean him out, and the FBI will probably charge him with fraud. You're finished too. No one in this industry will ever hire you again." "And us?" I looked at this woman I'd loved for 15 years, seeing a stranger in a torn evening gown. "There is no us, Sarah. There hasn't been for months. You killed our marriage the moment you decided Derek Morrison was worth more than 15 years of love and loyalty." Sarah started to cry again, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no desire to comfort her. She'd made her bed with Derek Morrison. Now she could lie in it alone. "I need you to leave," I said quietly. "Tonight. Pack whatever you need and go." "This is my house too." "Not anymore. Check your email. You'll find divorce papers waiting for you. I'm citing adultery and financial misconduct. You won't get a penny from me, Sarah. Not after what you've done." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "I never thought you had it in you." "Neither did I. But you taught me that sometimes good people have to do terrible things to protect themselves." Sarah stood up slowly, her torn dress rustling. "I loved you, Mike. I really did." "No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me, the safety I represented. But when something better came along, you threw me away without a second thought." She walked toward the stairs, then stopped. "Derek was right about you. He said you were weak, that you'd never fight back. He said I could have both of you, and you'd never do anything about it. Derek was wrong about a lot of things. That's why he's finished." Sarah climbed the stairs to pack her things, and I sat in my living room, listening to her move around our bedroom for the last time. 20 minutes later, she came down with 2 suitcases and her laptop bag. "Where will you go?" I asked. "That's not your problem anymore." She walked to the front door, then turned back one last time. "You know what the funny thing is, Mike? I was actually going to end it with Derek after the gala. I was going to choose you, choose our marriage. But now you don't have a choice to make. Derek's going to prison and you're going with him." Sarah opened the door and stepped into the night. "Goodbye, Mike." "Goodbye, Sarah." The door closed behind her, and I was alone in the house we'd shared for 8 years. I finished my beer and went upstairs to our bedroom, looking at the empty closet where Sarah's clothes used to hang, the bare dresser where her jewelry box used to sit. Tomorrow, I'd have to deal with lawyers and reporters and FBI agents asking questions about Sarah and Derek's crimes. Tomorrow, I'd have to figure out how to rebuild my life from the wreckage of my marriage. But tonight, I was free. I lay down in our bed, my bed now, and slept better than I had in months. No more wondering where Sarah was, no more lies to decode, no more betrayals to endure. Derek Morrison and Sarah had played their game and lost. They'd gambled everything on their affair and their crimes, and they'd lost it all in one spectacular night. And me? I'd learned that even a mild-mannered mechanic could be dangerous when pushed too far. I'd learned that revenge, served at exactly the right moment, could be more devastating than any physical violence. Most importantly, I'd learned that sometimes the only way to save yourself is to destroy the people who are trying to destroy you. Sarah and Derek had started this war, but I had finished it,